Let's look at some storylines to end the last half of the Spurs season and then talk about you, the Locked On Spurs fan.
You are Locked On Spurs, your daily San Antonio Spurs podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, this is Hot Rod.
And I'm RC from the Cybertronic Springs.
And you're listening to Locked On Spurs with Jeff Garcia.
Welcome back to Locked On Spurs, the Locked On NBA Network. I'm your host, Jeff Garcia, Spurs writer for Kings 5 San Antonio. Glad to have y'all back. Happy Tuesday, everybody. Thanks for making Locked On Spurs your first listen each and every day, free and available wherever you get podcasts. You guys are the everydayers. Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest, most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to PrizePicks.com/LockedOnNBA and use that code, which is all lowercase, LockedOnNBA, for a first deposit match up to $100. Hey, what are we talking about today? We're going to be looking at the last stretch of run of the Spurs season. What is like one storyline that we're interested in to seeing how the Spurs end this season? And then also talk about you, the Locked On Spurs fans, and some comments y'all are leaving on the Locked On Spurs YouTube page. By the way, we'll be joined by Michael Jimeenz of the Acquired Taste, part of the Alamo City Sports podcast. He'll be joining us in just a few seconds. But before we dive into the last stretch run for the Spurs season, they are still on the road trip. So, and I know y'all are itching for some Spurs action, I guess, something, right? See Wemby. But let me just quickly give you the last few games for the Spurs before they get, they call it a day at the road trip. So they'll return on the court February 22nd, this Thursday at Sacramento. Then they'll go to a big game in Los Angeles versus the Lakers. That'll be on Friday. So they have a back-to-back right there. Then they go to Utah on February 25th. And then they go to Minnesota on February 27th, and they end the road trip with Minnesota. So just 4 games left. They'll return back home on February 29th against the Thunder. What a way to welcome the Spurs back to San Antonio. So there's your quick little end of the road trip report there. So let's go ahead and talk about the stretch run of the Spurs season. So going to bring in our guest. He is Mike Jimeenz. Where is Mike? There's Mike. Mobile Mike Jimeenz from his car today. What's going on, Mike?
Oh, doing well, man. How you been?
Doing all right. Make sure to follow him on X at MJ Acquired Taste. He's part of the Alamo City Sports podcast. We'll be talking about that later on this show. Now, as you can tell, Mike's doing it from his car. Why? He's a busy man. He's at work. So he's between jobs right now or client calls. So we're going to try to get him out of here ASAP. Jimeenz, this is it. The stretch run for the Spurs. Just about a little over 30-ish games left, and that's it. That's all she wrote. But if you're looking at the Spurs' last part of their season, what is one storyline you're looking forward to seeing or develop to close the season?
Well, actually, I have 2. One is on the court, one's off the court.
Okay.
On the court, I want to see if Wemby hits the rookie wall. Mm-hmm. That happens a lot because he's never played an 82-game season before, and I know he's not going to play all 82 games, but this is a lot longer of a season that he played in France. I want to see if he hits a wall sometime around March or so where he's not as efficient because, man, he's been balling out, man, ever since January 1.
Oh, yeah.
He's been doing very, very well, playing at an all-star level. And I'm worried that he might get tired down the stretch for the end of the year. So I want to see his efficiency and his style of play to end the season. So that's on the court. Off the court, the rumors about Trae Young going to the Spurs and how the Spurs are going to react to that because they're going to be hit with questions about it after seeing the All-Star break weekend where you see Wemby sitting down next to Trae Young, being asked questions about, hey, what does Wemby need to be successful? And he starts detailing what is needed, and he's basically describing himself.
Right.
So those are the 2 storylines that I'm most following right now.
Yeah. I'm going to be doing a Locked On Spurs thing about Trae Young and the Spurs later on this week. But yeah, that's something great to see in the offseason. But as far as wrapping up the current season in the last half of the Spurs 2023-24, one storyline I'm looking at is who will stick around. Popovich has been making it very clear, part of a rebuild is seeing what players will stick. Now, we know Wemby's not going anywhere. So what players are going to stick with Wemby moving forward? So, the chances are high, the usual suspects, Keldon, Sohan, Vassell, well, those are the odds-on favorite to maybe stick with the team moving forward with Wemby after the season. But I'm looking at the fringe players: Zach Collins, Trey Jones, Champagnie. The list goes on and on. Barlow. These guys are practically auditioning to continue with the rebuild, continue with the Wemby era. And I hate to say this, Jimeenz. Well, I hate to say it, but I guess the reality is, man, this roster could look completely different next season. Your thoughts?
Oh, most definitely. I think some of these players are playing themselves out of not only the Spurs roster, but maybe out of the league in general. Julian Champagnie, my goodness, man, he has had an awful 6-week span where he's been starting and playing about 20 to 24 minutes per game, putting up 2 points and 0 points and 3 points. He is doing absolutely nothing on the court, offensively or defensively, not even rebounding. The guy is, as someone mentioned on Twitter, doing cardio out there. He's not playing basketball. So that's Julian Champagnie. And I hate to say that because I was really high on the guy
Yeah, me too.
when the season started because the way he ended last season. Zach Collins got that 2-year deal, got the bag, and then what? Has been playing ridiculously bad this season. Barlow, you mentioned Barlow's name. That is a player that might actually stick around. He has a little bit of a motor in him. There is some upside. He does well in the G League, so I can see that. But you're right. 2/3 of this roster is probably going to be flushed out when it's all said and done. And 1 or 2 of these players might actually be traded if the Spurs were to go after a big marquee name like a Trae Young. So I like the way that you phrased it. It is an audition to see who's going to stick around. The problem is that very few of them are passing the audition. City Osman, I mean, that might be one that is passing the audition. That's basically about it on that bench.
Would you throw Trey Jones in that list of passing the audition? I think. Yeah.
Well, Trey Jones is passing as a backup. It's quite obvious that the Spurs don't see him as a long-term solution at point guard. He is a good backup point guard, and I know that the numbers, the metrics might be out there saying, well, his assist to turnover ratio is really good. You might look at certain stats and go, well, isn't that what a starter is? But the guy is not a star. He is not a player that's going to take this team to a higher level. I like him. The Spurs got him at a good price point because he was a second rounder. But the fact of the matter is that I don't see Trey Jones being somebody who's going to be starting. And I like the way that when they re-signed him at the price point that he was at because that's a good salary to pay for a competent backup point guard.
Yeah, I mean, I like Trey Jones. I can see him sticking on the roster, but in that second unit role. So again, I can see him traveling, continuing on with the rebuild. And the thing about it too is that we all know, you do, the listener, watcher, everybody knows that this offseason the Spurs can make major moves. They can flip some of these players. They can flip multiple of the players who are currently on the roster. We know how many draft picks they got. They got more at the trade deadline. They got one more second rounder in their bag now. So then there's the draft itself. Do they trade out of it, and kind of collect more assets? I think that's probably the smart thing to do. But so this roster could look completely different, which is why I think that's my biggest storyline is seeing which players are going to be performing well in their last few games in the Spurs uniform before they close season to continue on. Now, you mentioned about Wemby hitting the rookie wall. I think he already did, Jimeenz. I think he hit it. He had a string of games where he was doing good, but not Wemby good. And he admitted it himself that he was feeling a little run down. He did go through that allergy thing he had in Texas allergies. But after that pass, he just exploded right before the All-Star break started going on. But I think the rookie wall's behind him because Popovich and the team did say before the All-Star break that they're going to spike Wemby's minutes. Your thoughts?
That's interesting because if he's hitting a wall, why are we spiking his minutes? I mean, I've wanted the guy to play a lot earlier in the season when he was more fresh. But he rolls his ankle in December and then they load manage him or they limit his minutes thereafter. I don't see the Spurs doing that. I think the Spurs are going to keep him at that 26 to 28 minutes per game kind of
Mhm.
level and just end the season. There's nothing to gain from having him out there. The Spurs are not making the playoffs. We're guaranteed a losing
Mhm.
record. So let's just make sure that he gets the reps and that he gets the experience and that they tinker or experiment with certain plays. But I don't see a spike in minutes at all. I don't see him doing 32, 34 minutes to end the season. I don't see it at all.
All right. Well, those are a couple of, or a few storylines that we're looking at to end the Spurs season once the All-Star break is over and play resumes. When we get back, we're going to be talking about you, the Locked On Spurs fan, and your comments. We're going to read a couple with Jimeenz and myself. What are y'all talking about? We'll discuss that and more just in a few seconds. Hey, I want to talk to you about PrizePicks. PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 3 million members. They are the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. It's you against the numbers. You pick more than or less than 2 to 6 player stat projections, and hopefully you can start watching those winnings roll in. Look, they have it all at PrizePicks. They got quick withdrawals, easy game playing. PrizePicks is simple to use. You can make your picks and submit them in less than 60 seconds. They have it all there. And they even got other stuff like they offer Apple Pay for quick and easy deposits into your account this basketball season. And as mentioned, PrizePicks is really simple to play. And they have this thing where they call like specials. So, for example, like Taco Tuesday. Yeah, they have a lot of these weekly promotions. And that Taco Tuesday, pretty much every Tuesday, PrizePicks discounts select players up to 25% to provide additional more value. What more do you need? Go to PrizePicks right now. I have it. You should use it too. Go to PrizePicks.com/LockedOnNBA. Use code LockedOnNBA for your first deposit match up to $100. That's PrizePicks.com/LockedOnNBA. The code is LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Hey, I want to talk to you about Mudslingers Drive-Thru Coffee. Go there right now, San Antonio, 2404 Thousand Oaks Drive, located in the 281 and 1604 area. Open every single day from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. You need a latte, they got it. You need their signature drink, the Mudslinger, they got that. You need cold brew, hot brew, whatever you need for your caffeine fix, go there right now to Mudslingers Drive-Thru Coffee. They do have dairy alternatives. They do have other drinks that you could take it easy with, not so much caffeine like the OG OJ. But go there right now. Proud local sponsor of Locked On Spurs, a proud local member of the community, serving San Antonio for a long time. Everybody goes there. You should go there too. Very friendly, very fan friendly on their socials. X, Threads, Facebooks. Pick a platform. They are there at Mudslinger SATX. So again, 2404 Thousand Oaks Drive, San Antonio, open every single day from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Oh, did I mention they also have mini donuts? Yeah, they have it all at Mudslinger Drive-Thru Coffee. Friendly staff too. Trust me, you can enjoy your visit to Mudslingers. Go to Mudslingers Drive-Thru Coffee right now. Why? Because life is too short for bland coffee. And we're back right here on Locked On Spurs with Michael Jimeenz. Follow him on X at MJ Acquired Taste. Make sure you do that right now. So, Jimeenz, we know you're a bit of a rush right now, so I want to keep you too long, but let's go over some Locked On Spurs fan comments. And by the way, luckily nobody's cooking you, so you're okay. Nobody's cooking you on the comments. You are safe. All right, so let's go with the first comment here. Let's find it. Get you a good one here. Okay, comes from FX Piris, Piris. Thank you, FX. He says, just enjoy. Why look in the future when you have the present? Do you always need a bigger cake? Is that why, basically, I'm not going to read the last part of his comment here because it might offend people. So I'll leave it at that. But basically, he's talking about building. Why are fans in a rush? Why can't they just enjoy what they have right now? Your thoughts, Jimeenz?
Well, what we have right now is a Spurs team that has the worst record in its 51-year history. Okay, so there's nothing to enjoy when it comes to that aspect of it all. But I think that the whole idea about looking to the future is, there's an old saying that says, if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. And there needs to be a benchmark of how do we know whether this team is on pace during the rebuild? What are the benchmarks that need to be hit? How do we determine what is a success for Victor Wembanyama? What's a success for Greg Popovich, for Brian Wright?
Mhm.
You need to have a certain benchmark there and always look towards the future, because as it stands right now, as we mentioned in the last segment, the Spurs have a roster right now that probably 2/3 of that team won't be here next year. So there's really the focus is all on the future, because that's all that we can look forward to. That's all that we can hope for. And we've had this hope since the Spurs won the lottery last year. So there's some disappointment
Mhm.
that the Spurs are having the worst record of all time in franchise history, because we expected more. Some expected more than others, but we expected something. So the idea of just take it day by day and just enjoy what we've got, no, because if anybody is successful in life, you're always looking to the future. You set a goal, you set up a plan in motion. And we just want to make sure that Spurs fans, that the Spurs pop in the front office have a coherent plan for the future, not only for the near future, but for the long-term future of this team. So it's always about looking forward.
No, it is. Yeah. And I understand what he's trying to say, because basically he's echoing what the Spurs have been saying. He is, don't skip steps. We're going to let Wemby develop on his own timeline. Hell, even before the Primo debacle, what did they talk about Primo? He's going to develop on his own schedule. So the Spurs have always been about this, taking their sweet time. And I think here, Jimeenz, I don't know if you agree or disagree with this, but this newer generation of Spurs fans, that's all they were used to, was winning. And now this is their first rebuild, and perhaps there's some impatience involved. What do you think? What do you think?
Oh, well, there's a lot to be said about that.
Mm-hmm.
The Spurs went, 30 years with
Mm-hmm.
just mostly winning records. I mean, except for the 1 year where Robinson got hurt. You
Mm-hmm.
go from 1990 all the way to like 2018, 2019. The Spurs are winning year after year after year and in contention year after year after year. So there is a bit of selfishness, a little bit of we're spoiled as Spurs fans.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think the frustration lies in the fact that we didn't begin the rebuild process earlier. We're bottoming out this year as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to bottoming out a couple of years ago. Now, people will come at me and say, "Well, Michael, if we hadn't have done that, we wouldn't have gotten Wemby." But that doesn't necessarily mean that that is a positive thing to say either, because you know, yeah, we got Wemby, but did we luck into Wemby, or did we get to Wemby simply because we didn't know any better and we didn't bottom
Right.
out when we should have in the past? I'm looking forward. I'm optimistic on the Spurs team. I'm hopeful that Brian Wright pulls the trigger on a good trade in the offseason, because that's what we need. We need to get more talent over here, better talent, all-star level talent. And before All-Star Weekend, if he had asked me what percentage did I think the Spurs would actually get a Trae Young, I would have said 25%. But after
Mm-hmm.
seeing what transpired this past weekend, I'm of the belief that there's a 75% chance that the Spurs actually do land Trae Young somehow, some way.
Yeah, we're definitely going to be discussing that later on this week on Locked On Spurs. But to counter that whole Trae Young thing, he did also say at All-Star break that he's committed to Atlanta for the long haul. Now, I know he has to say that, he is wearing their colors right now, but, he did mention that too. But yeah, and I appreciate the comment what FX left, because I get, I also get that side. If you're just a fan and you just love the Spurs, you want to see the team grow. I mean, there was a segment of Spurs fans that do appreciate the not skip the step method. And you just go on social media. That's usually the spark for civil war between Spurs fans. The pace, how this team is developing. So, but if anything, you want to sit back and smell the roses on is just maybe individually, like Wemby. Look, reflect on that as the season goes on. How he started his game one in the NBA to where he is now, and how he's going to finish it. And that's something I think all Spurs fans can appreciate. It's just smelling the roses along the way of Wemby's path. But collectively as a team, I also understand the majority of Spurs fans don't want to wait around, because as the Spurs are trying to rebuild Jimeenz, other teams are lapping them. They're lapping
Right.
them. There's the Kings. There's Dallas. They made a good deal at the trade deadline. We'll see how that works out in the second half of the season. Obviously there's the Clippers. There's Denver. So you kind of want to keep up the Joneses. And the best way to do that is use that entire cachet of picks and players and money they're sitting on right now to make things happen. But we appreciate your comment there, FX. When we get back, we're going to have one more comment for you. And hopefully Jimeenz doesn't, take off in his car right now and leave me high and dry as he hits the office. So Jimeenz, you got time for one more?
I do. Let's make it happen.
Let's make it happen. All right. Coming up next, one more comment from the Locked On Spurs YouTube page. Hey, I want to talk to you about BetterHelp. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp, and we always appreciate them right here on Locked On Spurs. Hey, look, sometimes we all need the opportunity to get something off our chest, big or small. Certain things can really impact you, start to get to you. It's important to let that out, especially to someone who's not invested, who's not unbiased, or who is biased. You don't want that. You want somebody who's unbiased in your life. So today I want to talk to you about how BetterHelp can help you. And if you're thinking about starting online therapy, why BetterHelp is the brand to go to. Look, it's entirely online, designed to be flexible, suited to your schedule. Again, if you're starting to think about therapy, you really want to give BetterHelp a try. You want to visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA right now and get yourself 10% off your first month. And look, there are times, that things are bigger than life, bigger than sports. We all love talking about the Spurs and argue this and argue that, but real life is out there. You're living it, I'm living in it, and there are things that can really impact you. Or perhaps you're doing something really well in your life and you want to continue doing that well and you want to improve on that. That's how BetterHelp can come aboard your life and help you make the changes to make positive strides in your life. So you really want to check out BetterHelp right now. Again, go to BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA. Get yourself 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. And we're back right here on Locked On Spurs with Mike Jimeenz via the Jimeenz Mobile. Is that where we're in right now?
That's right. It's almost as nice as the Batmobile.
almost, yeah. And again, everybody, Jimeenz is on his tight schedule right now, so we're trying to get him out here as fast as possible. All right, we're continuing our Locked On Spurs fan comments that you're all leaving at the YouTube page. And the last one for today is from All-Star. He says, let's not put all the pressure on his shoulders, man, him being Wemby. Then he's going to want to take off and make his legacy elsewhere. That's interesting. Do you think there's a lot of pressure on Wemby right now to change this franchise, pretty much making it do a 180?
Well, I don't think Spurs fans have gone after Wemby, and I'm glad that they haven't. I think that there's not a lot of pressure on him yet. I think that we understand that he was 19 when he joined the team, just recently turned 20. He is showing on all-star level capability, the oohs and the ahs, and you see fans from like Toronto and Dallas stop what they're doing and actually cheer for Wemby. So when I take a look at it, I don't think that he has that yet. I think that if we do have pieces of the puzzle placed around him and it doesn't gel, then there might be some cause for concern later on. But right now, I don't think there's any pressure being thrown at him from the NBA or from Spurs fans or even from Pop. I think that right now, we're just happy to see him play at an all-star type level and know that we got the right guy.
Yeah. I don't think there's any immense pressure. No, do you think maybe there may have been pressure if he had a ready-made team like Robinson did and TD did? I think maybe that changes things. Like, okay, guys, Wemby's here. He's your guy. Let's do this. But I think he came into this season knowing that he's on a rebuilding system/team right now. So there's a lot. I think if anything, he puts pressure on himself. I've been in that locker room. I've been in the conference rooms with him. It feels like he always, if you listen carefully, he's always saying, that self-reflection, like, if I did this, I did that. I mean, he even make a joke about it, saying how he almost had a quintuple double, saying like almost had 10 turnovers. So he's aware of that. But I don't think all the pressure is on him. I think right now, as of this recording, the pressure is really on Brian Wright to make things happen moving forward. And I think he's on the clock this offseason. So it's like, okay, you got your piece, Spurs, Wemby. Now what are you going to do to build around it? What do you think about that? Do you think the Spurs are on the clock this offseason?
Very much so. The Spurs have the draft capital to make something happen. You know, they didn't just get Wemby and not have draft capital behind them. They already had that, and then they got Wemby. So it's a little bit of a different thing.
Mm-hmm.
The Spurs are on the clock for a lot of different things. Spurs might have 2 first-rounders this year because we have our own and we have a top 6 protected pick from the Raptors.
Mm-hmm.
So this is going to be a very defining offseason for the Spurs because what do we do with the 1 or 2 picks that we get? What are we doing in matters of free agency? And are we going to trade for a star? We are on the clock because if the Spurs just bring back the team and just run it back again, we're going to be back in the same situation next year with a 20-25 win team.
Absolutely. All right, there. We thank you for the comment there. All-star. Good comment, by the way. Yeah, I disagree with you. I don't think all the pressure's on his shoulders right now. If anything, he's self-inflicted pressure. And the Spurs, obviously, I don't think they're putting pressure on him. Getting Pop, Brian Wright, everybody's been saying, you know, we're going to rebuild. We're not skip steps. So that includes not rushing / putting pressure on Wemby. So we appreciate that. Jimeenz, we thank you for making some time here to join us on Locked On Spurs. But you got things cooking on YouTube, the MJ Acquired Taste Show, Alamo City Sports Podcast. What's going on?
Well, Alamo City Sports Podcast Network is expanding. We have my show that goes on with me and Joe Garcia. Goes on from about 10:15 to 11:30 Monday through Friday. It's also available on podcast platforms like Spotify later on in the day. Rudy Campos Jr. has started Sweep the League on our network also it started last week, but it's from 2 to about 3:30 or so. And again, just go to YouTube and subscribe to the Alamo City Podcast Network, Sports Podcast Network, and you'll find us. It's been fun. You know, we've been growing so quickly that, dare I say, we've been skipping steps along the way. Because we want to be successful right away.
Look at that. You couldn't just exit the show, huh? Without taking a little shot there, could you? Again, make sure to follow him on X at MJ Acquired Taste. Hey, we thank you for making Locked On Spurs your first listen each and every day. iTunes, Spotify, Ken5 Plus app. Pick a platform. We are there. And subscribe today. We appreciate it. Locked On Sports Today, 24/7 streaming channel, only on YouTube. All the local shows, regional, national shows are there. Locked On Sports Today, 24/7 streaming YouTube channel. Go subscribe to it right now. We'll be back tomorrow with a fan episode. Yes, we have a fan episode tomorrow. We'll see who the mystery Spurs fan is going to join us, talk all things silver and black. Wait for that for tomorrow. So for Mike Jimeenz, I am Jeff Garcia. We're going to put a lock on this episode of Locked On Spurs.